Hello dear friends! In this video I would like to tell you about public housing in Sydney. It is mostly referred to as Housing Commission. Sydney is a very large city and unfortunately we couldn't find enough time to tour it as a whole and show you the most outstanding examples of public housing. Outstanding, of course, is in the quotation marks. What we will show today is in the immediate vicinity of our city centre, but is fairly representative and should help you to create a solid picture about what the public housing looks like in our city. Now we are in Maroubra. Here, as in the surrounding areas, the density of public housing is quite large. In Sydney, there are 9 districts that have a social development density of 22 to 95%. Maroubra is one of them. Maroubra is a beautiful beach area and is very popular among surfers. The beach itself is very beautiful, but is dangerous and had cost many inattentive lovers of swimming their lives. The same can be said about the public housing area. Its presence, unfortunately, adversely affects the criminal situation in Maroubra. As in all other areas with dense social development, a full bouquet of criminal activity grows here. Dealers and drug addicts, alcoholics, stabbings, robberies and other various crime. On the balance sheet of Public Housing Australia, organisation that is responsible for social housing in Australia and in Sydney, there are approximately 300,000 houses and apartments, which represents just over 4% of the total number of dwellings in Australia. As a rule, these are specifically built buildings and they're specifically built for the purpose of public housing. And they have a quite a typical architecture, as you can see in the video now. As a rule, these are houses made of dark red brick or are high-rise buildings with block design. Other notable characteristic is that they don't tend to have balconies. Now we are in Redfern area. This is another area with a very dense social development and perhaps one of the areas with the worst reputation in our city. There are both low-rise buildings and high-rise apartment blocks, in particular the famous Three Sisters. Three Sisters are the identical 16-story buildings whose walls can tell you many tales about the horrors that have happened here and are happening to this day. But in the view of the fact that our channel is somewhat family-oriented, I will not go into these terrible details. Those who are interested will be able to find this information themselves. Well, of course, most of the crime is related to the sale and the use of drugs. The state has been trying to combat this phenomenon for a very long time without much success. The only thing that they try to do is to evict the identified but not convicted drug dealers to other areas. Unfortunately, their places are immediately taken by the new enthusiasts of this extreme business.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Sorry? Who are you? Long time. What do you mean? Why are you saying I used to live here.
I would like to mention one curious case. In a nearby house, one of the residents and his friend were attacked and stabbed for just one dose of heroin. Both were unfortunately killed. The curiosity is that one of the attackers was the daughter of the former head of our state. The housing itself is not kept to a very desirable state. There is just not enough money allocated for the maintenance. But it should be noted that no matter how much money is allocated and spent, the residents tend to reduce all efforts to zero. The appearance of nearby territories is being maintained in a more or less proper form, while the private area of the dwellings tends to be in quite a deplorable state. This year, the government of our state decided to allow and allocate $60 million to improve the conditions of the living space. This money should be enough to repair and replace wiring, kitchens and bathrooms in about 142 apartments. As you can see, it's just a drop in the ocean. Well, now for those who are after this tour still thinking of getting social housing in Sydney, I will provide some details on how to go about it. The advantages of social housing are that it is considerably cheaper than a private rent. Also included in this price is the most of the necessary repairs. In order to get the public housing, you need to meet the certain criteria for wealth, or rather the absence of it. Then, if you satisfy the set criteria, you will join the queue and wait. Once you progress to the end of this queue, you will be allocated an apartment or house. The length of time in the queue is in direct proportion to the attractiveness and demand of the area for which you have applied. Official waiting periods are divided into three categories: from 2 to 5 years, from 5 to 10 and over 10. These timelines are quite realistic if you are ready to settle in a very remote area, where most people wouldn't really want to live. However, if you apply to a more or less metro suburb, then the official term of 10 years plus actually turns to an average of 20 years. And don't forget that throughout these 20 years, you are required to maintain your eligibility criteria, i.e., have a very low level of income and wealth. At the end, I would like to note that not all social housing is horrible and crime-ridden. There are very safe and desirable places where people live happily within the city, but it is rather rare, and the likelihood of getting a social dwelling in such a circumstance is not very likely and is definitely unpredictable. This is it for now. I hope you enjoyed not so pretty but honest look at Sydney. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Sydney Visa. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.